Welcome to First Pitch. I'm Marco D'Angelo, sitting in for the Prez, and I'm joined today by my good buddy Dave Cokin. I'll be seeing him a little later today. Dave, how's it going this morning?
We'll be seeing a lot of each other later today. Are you doing this radio show, or is Ralph?
Ralph's doing the radio show,
Okay.
and then I'm coming in to do the podcast. Not a lot on the podcast today, as some of the NBA games are, with the series closed up. Boston Celtics, what a pitiful performance, but that's for another day to talk about. Not a good series. It's time to make some changes on that team.
Well, Kyrie Irving will be gone, and they'll improve the chemistry right there. No, it'll be a good quality, not quantity podcast, because we're going to look at some NBA, and I think everybody knows what we'll be looking at there.
Yeah, because
it's the game. It's a huge game tomorrow night in Houston, and then we're going to touch on some NHL as well, so it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And on the radio show today, we'll run the whole gamut. We've got our CG Thursday with Will Bernanke, who will then join us on the podcast. So Will's going to be as busy as we are, and we'll cover the whole board. And on the radio show, we go behind the counter and find out what the ticket counts are and where the money's going. So it's good information for bettors.
Absolutely, and I know you've been locked into hockey all year, Dave, and another 7-game series. There's nothing more exciting. I know we all love 7-game series. I mean, there's that excitement, but in hockey, it's much different. It's that one puck in the net can be the season. Where basketball, you've got the runs up and down the floor. The game change. There's nothing more exciting than that.
No, we might have had another overtime game last night. Had a goal by Colorado stood. It was the right call. They were offside. Guy just didn't get off. He didn't tag up and didn't get off the ice in time. And it was their team captain. And, we're presupposing nothing would have happened after that, but that could have been a 3-3 game in overtime. Now, the NHL playoffs is spectacular, but now we've got just as much excitement in the NBA. And meanwhile, baseball doesn't get as much attention at this time of year, but there's money to be made on the diamond, and we're going to go through the Thursday schedule.
Yep, let's get it started with the Miami at the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
Dave, this Miami team right now, they can't get out of their own way. 2-9 last 11 games. More importantly, they can't score runs. This team has no offense at all. 2 runs or less in 5 of their last 6 games. And they're facing a buzzsaw in the Chicago Cubs right now. You're going to lay a big price here. And the Cubs, 9-1 their last 10. And the only game they lost was the first game of this series, which happened to be after that Sunday night game in that big weekend series against their arch rival, St. Louis. So you can give them a pass for maybe having, a flat spot on that game. But other than that, Cubs got it rolling right now.
They do. And, of course, that's in the price. So it comes down to a situation where whether you're willing to lay a huge number or not. I would not be willing to lay this kind of a number with Yu Darvish, who just, to me, has not displayed the command of his pitches that warrants being a big favorite over anybody. Look, anybody can score if they get free passes. And Darvish has been handing them out on a regular basis. The problem is, do you want to take a shot with Trevor Richards? The answer for me is no. He's just not winning at all. The Marlins are 3-14 when he starts, going back to last year. And they've only won once this year when he starts. So this is an easy pass for me. I think the line's a little inflated, but there's nothing here to get me on the Miami side.
Absolutely. Going to the next one, San Francisco and Colorado. Dave, what the hell's wrong with Colorado? I can't figure this team out. And their ace of last year, Kyle Freeland, he's not pitching well, back-to-back bad games. This is a spot here, they're at home. Again, you're laying at, a hefty number because, San Francisco was supposed to be horrible this year, and they're not a good team. But Colorado is supposed to be better than they are. And then Freeland, we're still living off of last year's numbers, and he's not doing it this year so far.
No, he isn't. In watching Freeland, look, his stuff's never been great, okay? What he's been is a good command pitcher, able to keep the ball down in the strike zone, throws the slider very effectively, and he's got some deception in his delivery. He's got that kind of almost Japanese hesitation in his delivery. But he is not commanding his pitches this year, and what's happened is he'll look really good for in individual innings. And then he'll have one bad inning where everything blows up. And last time out, it blew up twice back-to-back. I think it was a 3-run inning, then a 4-run inning. he's risky right now. Derek Holland, he's getting swings and misses. Holland's actually had some pretty good stuff. He's coming off the DL here. It wasn't a significant injury, and he only missed one start, so it's not that big a deal. But Holland in this ballpark could have some trouble. They start getting the ball up in the air at Coors, especially in a day game, and it can get out of there. Now, of course, the old Kyle Freeland first 5 under at home angle is in play here, and this was a monster winner for 2 years. It's only 1-2 so far this season, and I decided not to play it here. I think the price is about right here. I made it maybe a little bit cheaper, but not enough value for me to take a stab with the Giants.
Moving to the next game, my Pittsburgh Pirates against St. Louis. Dave, we've got this Central Division here in the National League. We've had 4 different teams that have been in first place this season in this division. Only the Reds have not had the first place spot. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they are Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You talk about, what was it, 3 weeks ago we're in studio and I'm sporting my Pirate jersey and I'm saying, hey, Dave, look who's in first place. Yeah, and then that lasted for they lost their next 6 games. Now they're back on a winning streak. 5-2 their last 7 games. They did lose yesterday in a high-scoring game against Texas, but now they go in to play St. Louis. You got St. Louis, who just when they got themselves into first place finally, which was the team that I thought this year was going to take this division, was the Cardinals, they proceed to lose 6 out of 7 games, and of course that crucial series in Chicago last week. And I think this has been a little bit of a carryover effect. After that big series, they didn't play well against Philadelphia. In fact, in the last 2 games, they've scored just 1 run in the last 2 games. Is that an aberration, or do we got a little bit of a problem going on here?
No, they're in a slump right now, and these happen to all baseball teams during the course of a season, and the Cardinals are kind of sliding right now. I don't like this Pirates lineup at all, although Josh Bell hit one. Did it land yet? I mean, that ball went in the water. He just crushed the ball last night. But the Pittsburgh bullpen continues to be a major, major issue. And the Cardinals have an edge if this is a close game late. Early on, it's tough to call. Musgrove had been pitching at a really high level, but got bombed in his last start, so he might be a regression candidate. Michael Wacha, really since he arrived in the majors, has been a home-road split dichotomy guy. Much better at home than on the road. This is a game I pretty quickly crossed out. I think Musgrove has some value, but Wacha's a guy I don't like going against at home. And if I were going to play this, if I'm going to play Pirates, it would have to be a first 5 selection because I just don't trust their bullpen at all. In the end, I decided, you know what, I just don't feel strongly enough about anything here to play it. If I had to play it, I'd probably take a shot with Pirates first 5, but that's just a guess.
I agree with that first 5 shot there. In Wacha, he is coming back home, but what scares me in the last 2 starts, he's only, he made it to the 5th inning both starts, so you got 10 innings pitched. His strikeout to walk ratio, Dave, in those last 2 starts, 9 strikeouts to 7 walks. You can't. It has been Michael Wacha in the last 2. Feel free to use that. You got the situation with the Pirates again. That bullpen, and that was supposed to be.
I know.
On paper, it was supposed to be the strength. The Pirates had good starting pitching and good closing pitching. My concern was like that, what do they do from the 6th to 7th inning to get to the setup guy in the 8th and the 9th? And it's just not been good after the starters have left.
And that's one of the things that in preseason conversations I pointed out is that just because a bullpen was really good one year doesn't mean even with the same guys it's going to be good the next year. There's more volatility in bullpens than any other aspect of baseball. And the Pirate fans are finding that out the hard way this year because what was supposed to be a strength has been more of a liability.
And an interesting matchup. We've got Arizona returning home off of the road trip. The road trip started out really good, and then they lost 3 of their last 4. You've got Atlanta headed out west, played the Dodgers. We know the Dodgers on paper, this team's one of the best teams in all of baseball. They're the best team clearly in the West. Atlanta got their lunch handed to them in this one, losing all 3 games, and they gave up some runs in that series. 23 runs in 3 games against the Dodgers. Arizona, again, this is a team that I didn't think to be playing as good as they are playing so far this year. I thought this was going to be a bottom rung team. They've surprised me. They've gotten more offense out of this team that I really expected that they were going to get. Losing Goldschmidt, in the offseason, we all thought that he was, heading downward on the trajectory for his career, and he's done well for St. Louis so far. But pitching-wise, you've got a nice matchup with Soroka versus Weaver here. A couple young arms. Luke Weaver, one of those guys, it was in that trade with Goldschmidt. How do you see this one? And Weaver's coming off a brilliant game in his last start. He had 8 strikeouts, and when I see a guy, putting up the big K number, I know he was in full command. Only gave up 1 run in 7 innings. But I know you like the Soroka, Mike Soroka, good young pitcher. Do you see value with the Braves here?
I didn't even look at the side in the game. I'll talk about the total in a second. One thing that's happened with the Diamondbacks is that, and Torey Lovullo was on Chris Russo's show yesterday on High Heat on MLB Network, and he was talking about the chemistry of the team, and they've got it. And that's teams overachieve when they got great chemistry. One of the problems I think maybe Atlanta or Arizona had in the past couple of years was too much of a reliance on their superstars. And this year they don't have that reliance. It's everybody pulling their weight. And he's done a nice job juggling the lineup, mixing things up. Peralta's playing really well. Escobar's playing well. Nick Ahmed has been almost a revelation of sorts at shortstop. We knew he could play defense, but his offense has come around. They're not a bad-looking baseball team. Atlanta is kind of what we thought they might be, which is a team that can hit the ball and might have some real problems in the bullpen. And it's kind of played out that way. In this matchup, I'm not going to try and play the side. I don't think this is a great spot for the Diamondbacks coming back home off a long game yesterday in Tampa. And they could be a little bit weary. Atlanta's just not playing well at all right now, so I don't like the side. What I do like is the total, but only for the first 5 innings. The Arizona bullpen got stretched out a lot yesterday, and I'm not sure what kind of condition they're going to be in. The Atlanta bullpen is just bad. You've got 2 pitchers in really good form, though. Mike Soroka, since he's come up, has been outstanding. Luke Weaver's on a roll. The way I grade pitchers, I do a grading system, which I won't get into, but Soroka's a perfect 4-0 plus on the grading system, and Weaver's 5 of his last 6 starts have been plus. So you've got 2 good starting pitchers, maybe a little bit of tired bats on the Diamondback side after the travel yesterday, and I don't think Atlanta's going to tear up Weaver. So to me, first 5, 4.5 looks like a decent under chance. And those 2 pitchers, by the way, have been going under in their first 5s.
Yeah, and you talk about Soroka, how good he's been in the last 4 starts. Well, how about an ERA of 1.14 and a whip of 1.01? He's gotten the job done.
You better get him early, too, because he's one of those rare guys right now, and this is short sample, or small sample, I should say, but he's actually had more trouble first time through the lineup than second and third times through the lineup. Once and in watching him, his command can be a little bit off early. That's something that, that's a rookie thing or a young pitcher thing. He's going to straighten that out. This guy's a potential number 1 starter.
Yeah, he's pitching well. I've been impressed with him all year. And moving to the next one, you got Washington at L.A. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to talk about current form, Dave, and, it's in the number, obviously, too, but this is the Washington Nationals right now. They can't get – you talk about a team that can't get out of their own way. This team is in total disarray. I thought, we all knew the Harper, signing with Philadelphia, that was going to be Washington was supposed to regress, but I didn't think they would regress like this. Well, I actually thought season win total, I liked them over. I thought they over-adjusted the number a little bit, but, man, they're not getting it done.
Well, they got no players. I mean, everybody's hurt. They finally got Rendon back, but they've been going recently without their 2, 3, 4, and 5 hitters. And I don't care what team it is. Well, the Yankee fans might argue this. You take that many guys out of the lineup, and then you add in some other liabilities that we kind of knew existed, one being an absolutely atrocious bullpen. It's the worst bullpen in baseball, and that's saying something because there's some pretty bad pens out there. So with the Nationals, you're now in a situation where you've got two options: play against them or take them first five. Tonight they've got Corbin on the mound, who, he's a good starting pitcher.
That's the bright spot.
Their starting pitching isn't that bad. Scherzer hasn't been himself, but it's not like he's getting killed. Strasburg's been very good, and the other night was brilliant until he wore out late. And if you bet Strasburg in that game, first five, you got out of it with a push because it was 0-0. And Corbin, nothing wrong with him. He's fine. But the problem is the team is they can't close out a game. They've still got a ton of injuries. Everybody knows Dave Martinez is on the hot seat, so you have to wonder about the team chemistry at this point. There's just no way you can make a good case, in my opinion, to back the Nationals. Rich Hill hasn't looked great since coming off the DL, but going back to last season, the Dodgers have won each of his last 7 starts. And quite honestly, I think the price is a little bit cheap here. I didn't play it, but I would lean to the Dodgers.
Yeah, you talk about Washington and how bad that offense has been. Dave, 9 of their last 10 games, 3 runs or less. You basically got to get the pitcher, as you said, go out there and pitch you a gem, but you still got to sweat. Even if he leaves with a 2-1 lead or a 3-2 lead, you're holding your breath if you got that bullpen coming in. Yeah, I can't get involved in this one with Washington, and I think. Do you think Martinez, if this doesn't turn around, does he make the All-Star break? Do you make a switch in season?
No, I think they're going to probably have to make a change. Look, it was a hire that was questioned anyway, and it's turning out that he's just not very good. I mean, if you watch, I've said this, and I don't mean it to be cynical, but he might be the worst in-game manager I've ever seen, and that's got nothing to do with the injuries because he made so many strategic mistakes last season. I thought he cost Washington a playoff berth, and they don't have to worry about that this year.
Dave, the other, we talked about teams where mysteries of what's going on and what's wrong with them. The Cleveland Indians, our buddies Ralph and Brian, they're not enjoying the baseball season with this Indians team. Right now, they got to win last night desperately, but they had a 3-game stretch there. The final game against Seattle and then the first 2 against the White Sox, they scored 1 run in a 3-game stretch. And in 2 of those games, they gave up 10 and 9 runs. Not a fun week for the Indians.
They can't hit. Now, the one good thing is maybe Jose Ramirez gets going with the walk-off last night. That was big for him, but he's been struggling. It's not a good situation. I mean, the players aren't stupid. They know what's going on. It's pretty clear that the Indians are not going to sign Francisco Lindor. The window is closing. They've got injuries in the pitching staff that are critical now, with Kluber maybe out for the year, and Mike Clevenger is probably going to miss another month. So, you got some guys at the back of the rotation now who aren't exactly reliable. And the bullpen is okay if they get to Brad Hand, certainly, but the problem is you got to get to Brad Hand. Now, they're just not very good right now. I do think they probably win today's game. Carrasco on the mound against Banuelos. This looks like a spot where the Indians might be able to get something done, even though it's against a lefty. But there's no way I could consider laying this kind of a price.
Not with that offense. There's no way. I agree with you 100%. This is an absolute no play for me. Angels and Tigers. The Tigers are in a little win-lose, win-lose, win-lose pattern. If you follow that pattern, they're supposed to lose tonight, Dave. You've got the matchup. Ryan Carpenter got the call up. He's filling in, I believe, for Zimmerman, taking his spot. Called him up from Toledo. Not dynamic numbers from him coming up, and this is one of those call-ups that you don't have a guy pitching well when you're bringing him up. This is an emergency. You got to fill in a roster spot. He was 1-4 at Toledo this year with an ERA of 4.09. Not horrible, but not great either. How do you see this one against the Angels, who have started to play a little bit better, but just whenever you think they're ready to turn the corner, win 4 in a row, they go out and lose 3 out of the last 4.
Yeah, well, you can forgive last night's loss. I mean, Skaggs didn't have a good night. Matt Boyd has been pitching really good ball for the Tigers, and I had the Tigers for my featured play yesterday. It was a 4% play and got that one home without much trouble. You pretty much nailed it already with Carpenter, who had 5 starts last year for the Tigers, and they lost them all. Does not appear to be, at this point in time, a big league pitcher. He is a lefty, and lefties have given the Angels some trouble this year. They do not have a good record. I think they're 3-10 against southpaws. The Angels are going to go the opener route today. It looks like Bard will pitch early, and then Felix Pena will come in. That's been done twice already, once with a good result, once not quite as good. Pena actually looks like a guy who might, like some of the Tampa pitchers, might benefit from not having to go through the top of the order at the beginning of the game, because he looks like a guy who's probably good 2 times through the order, but maybe not so good the 3rd time through the order. And that's why I like the opener, as I've explained in the past. I think it's a good ploy. Angels a favorite in the game, and they rate being the favorite in this contest.
Moving to the next one, you've got Seattle at the Yankees. And, we talked about Cleveland and all the injuries and Washington with the injuries. The Yankees, they got the injuries, and I know it pains you to say it being a Red Sox fan, but they've weathered the storm with all of the injuries they've had.
Which tells you just how bad the American League is outside of the contenders. The league stinks, okay? The National League is a much more balanced and I think better league overall. But the best teams in baseball are still in the American League, and they're dominating the lesser opposition. So even though the Yankees have had this huge run of injuries, they've still been able to play pretty good ball.
Yeah, and when they get healthy, Dave, how many runs is this team going to be able to put up on the board? I mean, they're putting up, some crooked numbers now as it is with a depleted lineup. Tonight, they send J.A. Happ to the mound. Now, we've talked many times about some pitchers can't handle the limelight, that big spotlight of the Big Apple in the media there. Here's a guy that he's had 3 starts. He's 0-3 at home this year.
Yep.
ERA 7.65 at home. A whip of 1.60. Not good numbers for him, but he is coming off a good outing last time. Not last time, 2 back, but those were on the road.
The last one was definitely not good.
Yeah, no, he went 5 2/3 against Minnesota, gave up 4 runs in that game. No strikeouts. He's not been a big strikeout pitcher.
But that's a problem for him, because that's where Happ really started to excel, and it's why he kind of took off late in his career. His strikeout numbers spiked. They've kind of gone back to his other level now, and that means what we're seeing is the old J. Happ, which is kind of an inconsistent guy. He can be very good at times and very bad at times. It makes him risky. To me, Happ's a cross off the list guy right now, because he's really difficult to handicap. And I'm not really thrilled with the prospect of taking Mike Leake, who also is not pitching very good baseball. So you might get some runs in this one today, but I stayed out of it completely, Marco.
Yeah, too big of a number there to get involved, but I don't trust the road team there to grab them. Interesting one, and I'm going to ask you, because to me, first of all, Texas at Houston, Mike Minor, what's going on with him? I mean, this has been probably the biggest surprise pitching-wise. You've seen him, granted, you get him pitching the way he is. I've never thought of him as this kind of pitcher. Where did he find this stuff this year?
He got healthy. Minor's always a guy. Look, remember, this is a guy who I think was like the 7th overall pick coming out of Vanderbilt. And he was kind of described as a high floor, low ceiling guy. Maybe he might be a little bit better than that. And now that he's really healthy and his confidence level is high, he wants to be a number 1 starter. And he's pitching at close to that level right now. Meanwhile, he's going up against Wade Miley, who I think it's now 23 straight starts, going back to the start of last season. I think it's 23 straight starts going back to the beginning of last season, where he's given up 3 or fewer earned runs. You talk about a guy who's been steady as a rock. So that should tell you where I'm heading with this one. And I know you talk about Texas and Houston, and it's offenses that can smash the baseball. And it's kind of scary to consider an underplay. But Minor looks like he can get the job done. Miley has been rock steady. I think the under is the way to look in this baseball game.
The form of the 2 pitchers, I cannot argue with you, Dave. And you talk about Minor, last 2 starts. 15 innings pitched, 1 run allowed, a 22-3 strikeout to walk ratio. That is absolutely dealing it. But let's go to the flip side, and you talk about, the pitchers are there. This is pitching versus hitting. Texas, last 4 games has scored 31 runs. Houston, last 5 games have scored 41 runs.
Yep.
I got the hat on. I don't have any hair, Dave. I can't take an under with 2 offenses like that, even if Cy Young and Sandy Koufax is on the mound.
Well, but see, and that's where I disagree with you, because good pitching still shuts down good hitting. It just does. It's always been that way in baseball. And right now you got 2 good pitchers. If you look back at the last several games for Texas, they're facing a Pittsburgh pitching staff, and they missed Tyon.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not exactly as though they were facing Sandy Koufax and Bob Gibson in those other games. And Texas goes up against a guy who just doesn't give up big innings. It's tough to get overs when you don't get crooked numbers. And Wade Miley isn't giving up any big innings. And 23 straight starts with 3 or fewer earned runs. That's a pretty good streak of baseball. That's not a short-term sample anymore. That's every start he made last season, every single one, and every start he's made so far this season. I'm not going into those numbers.
I agree with you. The only thing I will say is when you say good pitching, I agree with that. It's always been that adage. The only thing is, the new adage is these managers go to the mound too quick to go to the bullpen. And then we don't have those 2 guys out there. Now, we've seen
Houston's bullpen is really good.
Which that's the one that's going to get into play quicker, because Wade Miley, as good as he's been through this streak, he's generally 5-6 inning, and then you're going to have to turn it over. At least on the flip side for you with the under, Mike Minor is a guy that will go 7 innings for you. They'll go deeper with him. And in his last one, he went 8 innings in that one. So you got the benefit there. But I can't say I disagree with you. I just these 2 teams just scare me the way. And it's a ballpark it's a hitter's ballpark. Let's face it.
Especially against lefties with the short porch. I didn't play it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I haven't ruled out adding it. So it might end up as a play for me later on. As of now, it's a pass, but that's the way I look.
And the last game on the card, we'll wrap this one up. Cincinnati, as I said, I opened the show with you. I went with that old angle. I really thought Sonny Gray last night, going back to Oakland, would be pumped up. That was his first time back pitching in Oakland since they traded him last year at the trade deadline and stuff. Thought I would have got a good effort. It wasn't a bad effort. I lose a game in extra innings, 13 innings. You can't. It wasn't a bad pick, but it wasn't. It's one of those where we got to the bullpens and then it became a coin flip, and it came up heads, and I called tails. So loser for me last night. You're looking at this matchup tonight. How do you see Cincinnati? This is a team 4-8 in their last 12 games. Oakland returns home off an absolutely pathetic road trip, 1-8 on the road trip. Now they're back at home, 2-0. Do they get the sweep today over the Reds?
I don't expect Chris Bassett's run of success to continue, and I think he started to regress in his last start. So he's not a guy that I want to lay even a. I really don't want to lay any kind of a price with him. I would lean to the Roark side here. But it's just tough to play the Reds. And part of the reason for it is, when they win, they usually win by a lot. Their wins have just been decisive. But if it's a close game, they just find a way to lose it. So that's why the Reds, you look at their run differential, and it's like, well, this team should be pretty good. And then you look at their record, and they're not. Teams that can't win close games, to me, it takes a lot for me to get on them, because they kind of get in that mindset where if it's a close game, they're going to find a way not to win it. That takes me out of this one, because I'm not laying that price with Oakland. I do think there's value at Cincinnati, but I'm not going to pull the trigger on them.
Yeah, this is one of those rare times, Dave, and the key points that you said, when you look at the run differential and the metrics, Cincinnati's supposed to be better than the record says they are. Yeah. And this is a team, and I've talked with you a couple times in the show or on the podcast, and Brian Leonard and I have always had this conversation. I keep saying, who keeps betting the Reds? Because you see money come in on them on a regular basis. Now, that's not the case today. This thing opened.
But the reason that is those numbers, which indicate that they're supposed to be better than they've been, which means that you're getting value with them because they're supposed to be better than they've been. But the reality is there's a few teams every year. And last year, Seattle was the perfect example. the metrics consistently said, well, you got to play against Seattle. They're a fraud. But they just kept winning all these one-run games. Well, at some point, you just have to accept that as the reality and kind of ignore the metrics, if you will. I think the market's starting to do that with Oakland. I mean, this line's going wild as we speak. I'm watching my screen. It just hit 160. There's no chance I can lay 160 in the game. But as much value as there seems to be in this number right now, because it's priced way too high, the market's going nuts in the game. There's no way I can play this. To me, it's just an easy pass.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's where I was heading with it, is that they're always betting Cincinnati, but they're not today. They finally jumping off the bandwagon, and you know how that is. You know when you cross the fence? Sometimes when you're crawling over, a little region down below gets caught on the barbed wire crossing over.
I don't even want to think about that.
All right, Dave. Hey, good stuff. What do you have up today? You got any plays up already?
I have a play up, which you might have gotten a hint on listening to this podcast. Might have, I don't know. But I do have 4% play up today. It's been a very good run on my WagerTalk plays in baseball, and of late picked up a bunch of net profits over the past, 4 weeks roughly. And hopefully we'll grab a little more today.
All right. I will be getting my play up shortly. Was busy preparing for this. I didn't get the play up yet, but as you can tell, we've done a lot of research today, so we'll be ready for hopefully one or two winners on the card here, see what I put up, and then I will be seeing you a little later today. Have a good show with Ralph today for the Las Vegas Sports Line, 2 to 3. You can listen to that here Pacific time in Las Vegas, ESPN 1100. And, of course, for our people out of town, you can listen online. And then, of course, we always post the podcast later version of it. Good show every day. And it's nice that, and it's what we do in the podcast then later that we do every week on Thursdays, we get to dive a little deeper in the games because we're not on time constraints with commercial breaks and such. So we'll have the podcast out later tonight too, and we'll have a lot to talk about the Houston Golden State series. And Dave, just a teaser, it's lived up to everything that it's been built up to be. Do you see this?
I'm watching, and I'm not an NBA guy, but even I'm watching, and it's like this is fun.
Yeah, I was playing poker last night with Prez and Johnny. Last night, those guys were in town.
And I should ask you. Now, was there a side bet on who would last longer in this event that took place last night, and who won?
Okay, how it went was we expected all three of us to be in the 6 o'clock tournament, but Prez, because he doesn't do any work, he had the afternoon off, he got in the noon tournament, okay? He was still in the noon tournament when the 6 o'clock tournament started, so it ended up being just a heads-up matchup between me and Johnny. I did last longer than Johnny, but I'm going to defer no win because we got to take our hat off to Prez. That noon tournament, he ended up taking second place.
Nice.
Took down a $2,000 first place prize, went heads up with the guy, and when they got to heads up, the other guy had a big chip lead because he was the guy knocking out some of the people heading there. So we're going to give the award to Prez for his overall performance yesterday.
Second place is good.
Yeah, second place, nice money for him. Just a $125 tournament, but at least I have bragging rights over Johnny for at least the night. So it was a win-win all the way around, and then we made Prez pay for a little late night sushi last night. Yeah, a rare occurrence. We got Prez to get to pull out the money out of his pocket for a meal, but we had a good time eating some sushi, and both guys liked it. Teddy came down to root Prez on and went with us for sushi, and so Teddy's got another spot he likes. We went to Sushi Gorilla. Over on Trop on the east side. Found that place one week after videos, and that's now my go-to sushi spot. Nice all you can eat, and the quality is very good.
Good. We'll have to make a run over there. I've got one on the west side I'll treat you to.
All right, good stuff. All right, Dave, I'll see you later today. He is Dave Cokin. I am Marco D'Angelo. As I said, sitting in for the Prez. Bad news for you guys. Prez is back on the air tomorrow. So enjoy that. Had a few days rest of the Prez, but, congratulate him tomorrow on his second place finish. I'll see you later, Dave. Have a good one.
Have a good one.